Hello and welcome to the day.
Thank you for spending your time with us.
I'm Jake.
I'm Joel. Welcome back to another episode of Jake and Joel Are Magic. We continue the Pioneer Sleeper Series. Core 2020 is next. Jake, are you pumped?
Yeah, we got Core 2020. Before we can get into it, I need you to go below. I need you to click like. I need you to click subscribe. If you're hanging out, you've been watching a lot of Jake and Joel videos, you're like, I'm really enjoying this content. Go ahead, give us the subscription.
Yeah.
It really helps out the channel.
If this is your first time here and you really want to stay up to the minute with MTG Finance news and deck techniques for Commander, Brawl, Pioneer, Standard, or you just want to see us open some packs, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Jake, let's jump into it. As we do, I will display the caveat. The caveat. I will say it, and we'll still have commenters not get this. We are trying to pick the sleeper cards. We are trying to pick the cards that are $5 or less that we think have the ability to rise in price, and we think that you should pick them up now if it's a card that you might be interested in playing.
Yeah, so this isn't Leyline, this isn't Vivian, these aren't a bunch of cards that have already taken off, this isn't Sorin.
It's inevitable. Jake, every video, man, we've dropped the video and somebody's like, Mutavault, and I'm like, $20 card. They're like, Carnage Tyrant. I'm like, $25 card. What are you talking about right now?
Yeah, exactly. No, it's fine. We're talking about Legion's End, and the reason that this card is on this list is because it's only a couple bucks, and it's very relevant when you're playing against constructed decks that are aggro style decks. A lot of times the aggro player, they need to just empty their hand, and Legion's End is one of those cards that it hits the two CMC or less, and it just gets it out of there. It if you play it correctly, it's a good 2-for-1. Otherwise, it's just really good removal for their early game.
Yeah, on top of that, this hits a relevant deck with Hardened Scales really hard. It exiles their Hangerback Walker instead of killing it so they get their flyers. It exiles any of the low stuff, Stonecoil Serpent, these kind of cards. Plus, it gives you absolute perfect information of what to be expecting. Legion's End, it's probably a sideboard card, but man, do I love this card. Next up, old Rotten Reggie. Jake, what do you have to say about Zombie Dinosaur besides the flavor text? Now that's a zombie.
What I have to say is I have like 4 playsets of the card because
I
spec'd it when it originally came out. I was like, I'm buying some of these. I think this is a card that's really good. And we have to remember, Pioneer is a new eternal non-rotating format. It is in its infancy, so decks are constantly changing. In new cards, every single time a new set comes out, it is going to add new synergy. So let's take a look at what Rotting Regisaur is on the surface. It is a 7/6 for 3.
Huge.
In the right shell, its ability, which you may read at surface value as a negative, is actually upside. So in anything that needs to discard cards or you just need to empty cards from your hand, this is an engine for that. It's a static ability that allows you to put cards into your graveyard.
I have played this card a ton in both Standard and Pioneer, and I gotta say the only time it's really clunky is when you get 2 fairly early, maybe in your opening hand or within your first couple of draws, because you want to play naturally with this rhythm. You want to play everything else in your hand, then you want to play Rotting Regisaur if you're not specifically building it into a deck like Jake is suggesting that wants that discard as an engine as soon as possible. But if it's just a regular aggro deck and this is the top end of your curve, this card, you want it to go down last. And so I've seen it get a little wonky when I've got 1, when I've got 2, when I have some other stuff that's like 4 and 5 cost and I don't want to jam this down on turn 3 so that I end up inevitably, maybe working myself towards an Embercleave discard, which I don't want to do. But the card also, I found synergies like with Castle Lochthwain. Set a stop at the right point of the opening of your turn. Draw a card with Lochthwain after you've had to discard with Regisaur. You've got 2 cards in your hand for that turn. Suddenly it's not really mattering that your hand was empty. Yeah, I love this card. I can't talk enough about this card. I love it.
No, dude, and it's maybe that says something. it's never, ever, ever a bad top deck.
Yeah.
It always feels like the best top deck.
You're absolutely right about that.
It's like if it's not removal for their biggest threat, it's a huge threat for your side of the field. So maybe it is a 2 of or a 3 of in these certain kinds of builds where you don't want multiples of them.
Yeah.
Because otherwise it's just a big card for cheap. And remember that Ferocious in this format is a thing. So this card, being a cheap card, automatically turns on any spell that you need Ferocious where power needs to be 4 or greater. This is really good.
Yeah, it's my second favorite card to put an Embercleave on in response to the attack. My first is the Lovestruck Beast, just because it's a 5/5 that I can get down exactly as early as turn 3, just like Rotting Regisaur. And yeah,
or Team or Battle Rage.
Right.
Oh my gosh,
exactly.
Like, it's so good. Yeah.
Next up, Cavalier of Thorns, probably my favorite of the Cavalier cycle. This one, this has been seeing standard play like crazy. It's, once Pioneer figures itself out a little bit more and it's not quite so much of a rush format and a really fast format like Modern, once the aggro decks start falling by the wayside to the mid-range decks, I think that Cavalier of Thorns is going to have a lot of viability, especially with as rampant as green has been.
Yeah, dude. And green is the color. It cheats things out that are big early. Right. Reach is relevant. Reach is a great ability. It eats a lot of the stuff that's in the sky. And that inevitability that it's going to bring more things back from the graveyard, this is one of those cards that when it's being played against me, I'm like, ugh. It's gut-wrenching. It feels tough to play against, and that is usually a good indicator. It's probably a good card.
Yep, absolutely right. Next up, Kaalia Zenith Seeker. I think this is a sleeper. This is a coma pick. I have not seen this card in Standard. It has gotten some play in Brawl that I've seen. I've been blown out by it in Brawl, but that's when you can guarantee it on turn 3 if you hit your natural Mardu. But it does represent a flying vigilant 3/3 for 3 that can give you some card advantage.
Well, the digging here, and the fact that it's digging for very relevant things is, things that a lot of the time in sets, demons, angels, dragons, these are cards that keep getting revisited a lot. So when you have a card like this that's going to dig for, I don't know, specific toolbox pieces,
Glorybringer would be a fantastic target off the top of my head.
Right, exactly. So Glorybringer it's just like, if you're playing a deck with Glorybringer, you probably want to see Glorybringer a lot. So why not in a Mardu build where you can dig for it using Kaalia? And Mardu, honestly, is notorious for having really good standard showings. When I think of like Mardu vehicles or decks that are in these colors, oftentimes they are aggro-centric, and having Kaalia to dig, even if Glorybringer is just the top of your curve and you have Kaalia to dig for the Glorybringer, it's something to think about. And it's $1.
Yeah,
it's literally $1 right now.
Yeah, it's so cheap for a mythic right now. Steel Overseer is next. I mean, this is not a sleeper, really. This is a afternoon nap pick, because this card has been in the Hardened Scales deck since the Hardened Scales deck was first conceived.
And Affinity and Hardened modular decks in Modern. Yeah, it's a card that's excellent. It's a card that, it's probably hovering around $4, $5 right now. Yeah. But as more and more people get interested in Pioneer, this is one of those cards where people know its power level because of previous formats and its previous use. So it's one of the cards that's going to be on a lot of players' radar as that kind of hive mind of what determines what decks become good and who plays what. It's one of those cards that will very quickly get bought up if Hardened Scales proves to be tier 1.
I was shocked that this card hasn't had more reprintings than it has. It was in M11, it was in, I believe, a dual deck, and then it's in Core Set 20. And that's it. I thought, this card has been around forever in my mind, because it has. M11 was quite some time ago. But it was shocking to me that this card hadn't been printed into the dirt.
Yeah, I think it's in the Vincer dual deck or something like that. It has kind of like a little lightning gear symbol or something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was one of the reasons it held such a high price point, is because of its scarcity.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Next up, Moon Yanling Sky Dancer. Man, every time I see this card hit the other side of the battlefield as an aggro player, I'm just like, ah.
Yeah, dude, it's really good, and it might just be a sideboard card, but it's one of these 3 CMC planeswalkers, very potent abilities. Giving something -2, -0, and losing flying to your opponent's side is a pseudo way of protecting it itself. So I think in the right shell, this card is super potent, and as soon as you make that 4/4 flyer, it's just... Oh man, it's brutal for the opponent, because now you're really protecting it, and if you can't answer this thing, it will just blow a game out by itself.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I think it's very relevant that 2 of the most highly played aggro cards that are in the red and or red-green decks right now are Goblin Rabblemaster and Goblin, the other one that's very, very similar that makes an attacking token.
Legion Warboss, yeah.
Legion Warboss. They both have 2 power, and one of them grows the attackers with them, and one of them gets bigger. So if you're looking at Warboss, this card is shutting Warboss absolutely down, and it's putting 2 power loss on the Rabblemaster. It's just it could be a very relevant card, especially out of the sideboard, like you're saying.
Sure, and the thing that holds the card back is the loyalty on it, but it does grow quickly, so that's something to keep in mind, that if it's in the right shell, the fact that you're able to give it 2 loyalty every turn while tempoing out your opponent and making their threats smaller, if you have it in like a blue-red build where you're shocking the other problems, or this is just one of those cards where as soon as you make that 4/4, and as soon as you're protecting it and you're on your way to making another 4/4, your opponent is in a really, really bad position. And I don't think $2 really reflects the power level of this mythic. I think it's a card that has a lot of room for growth.
Yeah, and Pioneer, by the way, we're not shocking the other threats. We are wild slashing the other threats.
That's true.
And don't you forget it.
Very, very, very important to
We
remember.
play the strictly better card just because it has more text. Let's talk about Brought Back. White, choose up to 2 target permanent cards in your graveyard that were put there from the battlefield this turn, return to the battlefield. That's what I wanted to talk about, was permanent cards. I have had people return the search land, the only fetch land that's
Fabled Passage.
I have had opponents sack a Fabled Passage and some little, dinky artifact egg type thing and return them so early in the game on me, and I'm just like, what? I've seen this used as ramp with Fabled Passage. It's just, I think that this card has a lot of potential that has not been tapped yet.
This was one of those cards that when it came out, it had so much hype, dude. Because people were like, oh, in Modern, I could do fetch land. I could play Teferi, Hero of Dominaria as early as like turn 3 or something if you're playing Lotus Field.
Right.
There's a lot of weird combos that come with it. And when it's one of those cards that people are kind of like theory crafting and kind of like brewing with, it is something to keep on your radar, because also in white is one of those colors that has a lot of trouble drawing cards late game. So if your cards do get removed and you have Brought Back, it is kind of like a pseudo card advantage kind of thing, where it's like, okay, I'm bringing these things back that have since been removed. Maybe it's a late game card, and now they just killed your Teferi Time Raveler and maybe like your big flying threat. Now suddenly you're getting them back. So I think it's really good value on 2 mana.
Yeah, absolutely.
Something to keep in mind.
I had a lot of success with an early build that I didn't spend too much time on, mono white humans, and it was very strong, but it was very susceptible to board wipe. And this is actually a card that wasn't even on my radar, a few weeks ago when I was playing that deck, and could have thought, well, this could be good protection, bring back the Thalia's Lieutenants or whatever else, the Benelish Marshal that gets hit by the board wipe and, return them right to the field.
Oh yeah, like when you have this card, you don't even care about the board wipe. You're like, just send them.
Yeah,
send them.
Right.
Send them.
Let's get it out of your hand.
You blow up the field at your EOT, we're just going to return 2, and now your opponent's like tapped out and they're going, well, I'm probably effed.
Yeah, exactly. Dread Presence is up next. This is a card you've said made some splash in Modern. I have played this to great success in Standard, actually, in some mono black builds recently. It's a card that wants to hit the battlefield on turn 5 before you play your 5th swamp. But it's still, if it goes unchecked, this card will definitely start turning the corner for you.
Well, let's talk about this card. Plays best alongside Urborg or something that makes all lands swamps.
Sure, absolutely.
And it also plays really well with like fetch lands, or like being able to search and tutor up swamps. So Fabled Passage is going to play really well with this card. Maybe even possibly Evolving Wild, something that's going to allow you to grab swamps. If you are playing it in mono black, most likely you are going to be playing it on like turn 4 or 5. So I could see people being kind of turned off by the converted mana cost of the card, just like you were talking about. But it is a card where, you know, you're doing 2 damage to any target and gaining 2 life.
Yeah.
So it's netting you life. It's dealing direct damage to anything that you find pesky.
Right.
And it also has the versatility to let you, you know, Phyrexian Arena whenever you want. So it's a really strong card, and I think that it's something to keep in mind as especially a 75-cent card. If you're sitting on the fence and you're going, well, I kind of want to play Dread Presence, but I don't know, maybe do I really want to buy in? I mean, maybe you should, because if a pro comes and they freaking top 8 with it, it's going to become like a $3 or $4 card. It might even go higher than that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's good.
There was a game of Historic I was playing with my mono black deck. It had Dread Presence in it, and I was playing against elves, and drop Dread Presence, drop a swamp, kill one of their elves, and they were kind of like, okay, and I pass back to them, and they pass back to me. I'd drop another swamp, kill another one of their elves, and concede, just like that. I mean, it just turned into this, if you don't have an answer for it, it can shut you down.
Oh, 100%. And I think it is really important. A lot of the good removal in this set isn't hitting 3-butts, and Dread Presence is a 3-butt.
Yep, that is absolutely right. That takes us back around to Legion's End and to the end of the Core 2020 Sleeper video. Really appreciate you watching. Like we said, if you're new around here and you want to stay up to date with all the stuff, make sure you're hitting subscribe. If you want to support us further, we've got a Patreon link is in the description below, and Jake and I stream about twice a week, Tuesday and Thursday nights over on Twitch. Jake, that's the info dump. I see you're doing your shoulder dance for us.
Doing a shoulder dance, and what comes with the shoulder dance is like kind of like a bewildered look.
Yeah, kind of a chaotic, bewildered look. That's good. We'll appreciate you. We catch you later. Bye.